You feel it. Something has changed. The way this person looks at you is no longer the same. What once was friendship now carries a different weight. You think about it all the time, but you pretend you don't. The problem? If you take a step forward, you might lose everything. But if you don't, you could spend the rest of your life asking, what if? What are you going to do? Stay stuck in fear or find out if there's something bigger? This person needs your answer, and needs it now. You know what's happening. You don't need anyone to tell you. It's not in your head. It's not an exaggeration. This person feels it too. Your silence screams. The gaze holds something that words cannot express, and it's suffocating. You try to ignore it, push it aside, pretend that it's still the same friendship as always, but it's not, and you know that. The problem is that this doubt doesn't go away. You wonder if you're ready to lose what you already have, if it's worth destroying this security for the risk of the unknown. The fear that everything will collapse keeps you frozen, but the truth is that staying in this position is already destroying you. Because the truth, you are already losing your peace, losing sleep, losing moments that could be lived without this anxiety trapped in your chest. So I ask you, until when? Until when will you pretend you don't feel? Until when will you hold back for fear that everything might change? Because it will change, whether by choice or by lack of one. If you do nothing, this silence will turn into distance. What is still a contained desire today could become an unbearable emptiness tomorrow. A friendship that once meant everything can become just a memory. And the worst part? You won't have an answer. Because in the end, regret doesn't come from what went wrong. It comes from what never had the chance to happen. So tell me, what are you going to do now? You might try to convince yourself that time will heal everything, that if you wait long enough, this feeling will pass. But deep down you know that's not true. You've tried to ignore it, you've tried to hide it. You've told yourself it's just a moment that will evaporate over time. But with each passing day, the doubt grows, the desire intensifies, the fear tightens its grip, and you find yourself trapped in this illusion of control, believing that if you say nothing, things will stay the same. But the truth? Nothing is enough to change everything. Silence is suffocating. It destroys connections. It pushes people away. And if you keep waiting, it might be too late by the time you decide to act, because that person feels it too, but they won't wait forever. Life doesn't pause. Fate doesn't hit the brakes. You think you're protecting yourself, but in reality, you're depriving yourself. You believe you're avoiding a mistake, but maybe you're making the biggest one of all, letting the only chance to experience something real slip away. And what if tomorrow that person moves on? What if this space that exists between you today is filled by someone who doesn't hesitate? Are you ready to watch them in someone else's arms? To see everything end without ever having had the chance to find out what it could have been? Because that's what will happen if you keep standing still. So what's worse, risking the truth or being trapped in doubt forever? You need to choose. Now. You think you have time, that you can wait a little longer, that you can keep pushing this decision to tomorrow. But tomorrow never comes. Tomorrow turns into months. The months become years. And by the time you realize it, that person is already gone. Gone because they got tired of waiting, because they interpreted your silence as a no, because life has moved on and you stayed behind. So what's left? What's left is watching from a distance, seeing that person smile but not at you anymore, watching someone else take the place that could have been yours. And the worst part? Not being able to blame anyone but yourself, because deep down you knew. You always knew. You just were afraid. But fear never stopped things from changing. It only stopped you from being the one to live that change. So what now? Are you still going to wait? Are you still going to pretend you don't feel anything? Are you still going to hide behind the excuse of time? Or will you take action before it's too late? Because the truth is simple. You're one step away from losing that person forever. So, are you going to let that happen? Decide. And when that day arrives, when you realize that what you have now no longer exists, because it will happen, and there's nothing more cruel than realizing that too late. There's nothing worse than looking back and wondering, what would it have been like if I'd had the courage? Have you ever regretted something in your life? Have you ever felt that tightening in your chest, knowing you missed an opportunity that will never come back? Now imagine that feeling multiplied. Imagine seeing that person look at someone else the way they used to look at you. Imagine realizing that at some point they were waiting. But that wait is over. Can you handle that? Can you move on knowing that the only thing that kept you from living that story was the fear of trying? Because that's the truth you're avoiding facing. The fear of losing is already causing you to lose. The fear of change is already changing everything. You're standing still, thinking that by doing so you're keeping everything under control. But the reality is that life is deciding for you. What if life decides that this person should move on without you? Because that can happen. It will happen if you do nothing. So now tell me, which choice hurts less? The risk of losing what's already fading before your eyes, or the regret of never having tried? Because that decision, sooner or later, will be taken out of your hands. Either you choose now, or life chooses for you. And when that happens, you won't be able to go back. Are you ready to carry this weight? Or are you finally going to take the only step that can free you from this doubt? The choice is still in your hands, but not for much longer. Decide before it's too late. And what will happen when life chooses for you? When that person looks at you as if you were just another face in the crowd? As if none of this ever existed? Are you ready to deal with that? Because that moment is coming. You can keep pretending you have time, that you can put off this decision until you feel ready, but time doesn't care about your fear. It simply moves on. And along with it, that person does too. And one day you'll look and realize there's no more room for you in their life, that the gaze that once shone for you now shines for someone else, that the conversations that used to last for hours have turned into silence, that the connection that was just between you two has faded into routine. And when that happens, you'll remember all the moments when you could have spoken up, when you could have acted, when you could have tried, but it will be too late. So, what will be left for you? What will accompany you every night will be the thought that things could have been different, but they weren't. Because you chose silence. You chose the safety of fear over the uncertainty of feeling. And now there are no more choices. Now all that's left is to watch. Is that what you want? Because you still have time. There's still a moment before this door closes forever. But moments don't last forever. So what are you going to do? Are you going to keep waiting, believing you can delay the inevitable? Or are you finally going to act before fate decides for you? The decision is still yours, but not for much longer. Choose. And when the door finally closes, when you realize there's no turning back, that everything that once was a possibility is now just a distant echo of something that never happened, because that moment will come, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it's coming. And when it does, you won't have a choice anymore. There won't be time to think. There won't be time to hesitate. You'll look at that person and realize they have changed. The spark in their eyes is no longer the same. The hope that once existed has worn away under the weight of silence. And now, when you finally feel ready to speak, there's no one left to listen. And that will be the hardest part. Not the loss, because losses are part of life, but knowing that this loss was your choice, that you had the chance and squandered it, that you could have lived something real, but you chose doubt instead. So what will be left? The emptiness of all the words that were never spoken, the weight of all the opportunities you let slip by, the pain of knowing that while you stood still, the world kept spinning, taking that person further away from you. And now what remains? Photos that you look at and feel a tightness in your chest, places that once held meaning but are now just memories, old messages that you read trying to relive a past that no longer exists. But what if you could avoid all this? What if for just a moment you found the courage, if you chose risk instead of fear? Because there's still time, but not for long. So I ask you one last time, will you act now or spend the rest of your life wondering what could have been? Time is running out. The choice is still yours. Decide before it's no longer yours. And when will it no longer be your choice? When suddenly that person stops responding to your messages the same way. When the meetings that once happened effortlessly begin to grow rare, spaced out, almost non-existent. It will happen gradually. One day, you'll realize that you are no longer a priority, that the intensity that used to exist between you is now dissolving into short replies, excuses, and a distance that grows without warning. You're going to feel it. You'll realize that something is changing. But by then, it might be too late. Because while you were waiting for the right moment, someone else might have already stepped in. Someone unafraid to take risks, unafraid to make mistakes. Someone who saw in that person what you took too long to accept. So, what are you going to do? Ask for another chance? Try to turn back? Attempt to fix what you didn't have the courage to build? But what if there's no turning back? Because some things once lost can't be regained. Some doors once closed never open again. And you need to understand that now. If you keep waiting, one day you'll wake up and realize you waited too long. That the fear that felt like protection was in fact a barrier. That in trying to avoid pain, you ended up condemning yourself to an endless regret. Because the truth is simple. You can't have that person and at the same time be sure that nothing will change. You can't stay still and expect the connection to remain. Either you take action now, or you accept losing. So what will it be? Will you risk how you feel, or will you watch everything come to an end right in front of your eyes? This person needs your answer, and they need it now. And when that moment arrives, when you realize that this person has moved on and you've been left behind, because that's what's going to happen. It won't be instant. It'll start with small signs. One day you'll notice that conversations no longer flow like they used to, that their words don't carry that silent expectation anymore, that the glances that once sought answers are now neutral, distant, lacking that spark you tried to ignore. And then one day you'll see that person with someone else, someone who didn't hesitate, someone who didn't get stuck in fear, doubt, or the what-ifs. And you will feel the impact of that, the weight of all the times you could have spoken up, of all the opportunities you let slip by, of all the chances you had to change the story and chose silence instead. But the worst won't be seeing her move on. The worst will be realizing that you will never know what could have been, because now it no longer matters. That person has learned to live without you. She created new routines, found comfort where she once waited for you, and now, when you finally muster the courage to act, it won't even be necessary anymore. What used to be desire has turned into memory. What once was a possibility has become an unwritten story. And you will carry that, not for a day, not for a week, but for years, perhaps for your entire life. Because regret has no expiration date. It weighs you down, it eats away at you, it settles into every thought about the past and makes you relive what never happened. So what now? Will you continue to wait? Will you cling to a fear that is already making you lose? Or will you do something while there's still time? Because the truth is simple. That person is already moving on. Will you let her go without even trying? This might be your last chance. Decide now. And when you realize that there's no turning back, when at last you understand that time hasn't waited for you, because there will come a day when you won't have a choice anymore. Maybe it will be in a casual encounter, when you cross paths on the street after a long time. You'll see her smiling, living, moving forward. But what will hit you isn't just the fact that she has moved on. It will be the way she looks at you, not with anger, not with hurt, but with indifference. That gaze that once searched for you in the crowd now passes by you without stopping. The voice that once called your name so sweetly now sounds distant, formal, too polite, and you will understand. You will realize that you no longer belong in her world, that what you had, whatever it was, now belongs to the past, and when that moment arrives, you're going to wish you could turn back time. You'll want to relive the days when that person was waiting, when the glances had a hidden meaning, when the chance still existed. But there's no going back. What was lost cannot be recovered. And then, you're going to carry that truth. You'll feel, deeply, the weight of having let slip something that could have been everything. Because what hurts the most isn't the loss. It's realizing that the loss was your choice. So what now? Do you still think you can wait? Do you still believe you have time? Or have you already understood that time has never been on your side? This person needed your answer, and you chose silence. Now silence is all that remains, so what will you do? Will you repeat that mistake or finally take action before it's too late? Because the time to choose is running out, and when you realize that this person is no longer there, when you look at them and understand that everything that could have been is now just a memory that never materialized? Because that moment will come, and when it does, it won't matter that you want to go back. It won't matter that you try to say what should have been said long ago. It won't matter that you wish for a chance that no longer exists. Time does not forgive, silence does not protect, doubt does not save you. You thought waiting was safe, but waiting made you lose. Now the question is, how many more times will you repeat that mistake? How many more times will you let fear decide for you? Because one day you will look back and realize that all the opportunities were there, that all you needed was a word, a gesture, a step forward. But you chose hesitation, and in the end, what weighs the most isn't what happened. It's what never happened because you didn't have the courage to try. So what now? Will you continue living in what if? Or will you do something while there's still time? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Would you take the risk or remain silent? I want to know your opinion. If this message made you think, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content like this.